like we're pulling a real Critical Role there. Hello and welcome to First Geek 411 Book Club.
It's because I love you, Shanine.
I'm not thrown at all. Hello. We are discussing Good Omens, the nice and accurate prophecies of Agnes Nutter Witch by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Huzzah! With me, I have our resident heckler, Emma.
I want the reverse copy of this book as well. That's black with a Aziraphale on it, and I've been on the hunt for it for years now. So if anyone knows where to get one, let me know.
Nice. And with us as well, Cameron.
Hello, Grip headphone users.
Always.
Say, I'm not
I-
looking for a reverse cover of this book, but would accept one. So,
Someone give it to me so I can have both. Minor pitch. I need it. Continue.
And I'm Shanine. And before we jump into it, you can find us at all the social media places Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as OneGeek411. Come chat with us at our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Watch live on our Twitch every Monday night at 6:45 Mountain Time and find all our videos over on YouTube. You can also check out some sweet merch at our Redbubble store. There's a lot going on in this book, and it was fun trying to summarize it. So we have the briefest of summaries. Uh, Demon Crowley and Angel Aziraphale are just trying to live their lives on Earth, and the powers of heaven and hell are intent on bringing about Armageddon. The four horsemen are riding, but Armageddon may not be going as planned. Witches are off trying to follow prophecies, and witchfinders are accidentally teaming up with them. The Antichrist just wants to bike around town with his entourage and fluffy hellhound, and antics ensue.
yeah, cue antics.
So many antics. Some of which involve feeding ducks.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
I
Um,
know.
I think this is possibly one of the most unhinged books we've read for book club,
Mhm.
and book club
Obviously.
is
I am
therefore
myself unhinged.
going to be unhinged.
Yes.
A lot of my questions as written are just like, I don't know, partially my commentary, partially questions. I don't know. We're going to talk about things.
Yeah,
As
it's
one
gonna be an
does.
experience.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, 3-word review. Go.
This book changed my life. That's more than 3 words.
More than 3. Not
But
ex-
it
Disqualified. Please mute
will not
yourself.
allow it.
Yeah. Strike it from the
fine,
record.
I'll leave. I'll leave. You guys don't need me here anyway.
Yeah. Before the podcast, we were joking that Emma could just peace out because we all know how
I
she
could
feels
literally
about this book.
just
And so,
pick up and leave. Y'all could tell each other my answers for me without me having to write them up because we know what my answers are.
Yeah.
Yes.
mine is it gets bananas.
Yeah, it does.
Just wild times.
So many wild times.
Wild times.
All of the wild times. Because it's good. It's so good.
All right. I think we all have varying experiences reading and or watching Good Omens. So, let's tell the people our experiences with said media.
So mine's probably the shortest, so I'll go first. I have seen the show, both seasons, and then this was my first time reading the book, and so, yeah.
I've read this book at least 10 times. At least, if not more. Um, and this copy is starting to fall apart in places because I have read it so many times. And I have seen the show, both seasons, multiple times. That is as brief as I can keep it.
Yeah. Why is your hair the color it is?
Why is my hair the color that it is? Because I am potentially a big fan of Good Omens and mildly intentionally Disney bounding as a Xerophale right now.
Making him proud.
Hence the shirt. Because I didn't feel like putting on my entire outfit. And because Comic-Con was a month ago.
Lack of commitment, Emma.
I know.
That was just
So little commitment to the bit
Yeah.
that I'm now blonde.
Yeah. I don't think I can afford this, but we could level up our book club by cosplaying as the characters every week.
We could.
Or every month. Like, again, I don't think I can do that sustainably, but like that is an option.
Need a job.
Like,
I think I read Good Omens right before the first season came out. I think. And it was great. And then the first season was great.
Yes.
And also I am making First Geek Book Club history in that this is the first book I have read for book club as an audiobook.
one of me. One of me.
I did the full cast audiobook, which has David Tennant and Michael Sheen voicing
nice.
their characters. And I think it was the correct way to do it.
Yeah.
I did
have
not do that
saved.
one, and now I'm jealous.
I purchased that rendition of the audiobook just to have it for road trips and things.
It is probably totally legally available on a certain music streaming app as well.
That is potentially where I found it. Potentially.
For Cameron, what was your experience reading this for the first time?
I think I would have been uber confused had I not seen the show. Like they're so sporadic. Like, I'll equate it to like Douglas Adams with like Hitchhiker's Guide, where there is so much just like random stuff thrown at you through this book, and most of it, of course, is extremely relevant because they're good writers. But like, there's so much stuff that is just like I don't know if this is a funny joke that like is a one-off or if this is gonna be like literally the linchpin that the whole show or the whole like book hangs on. And there's a bit of both of those for like their really random stuff. And going back to like equating everything to the invisible life of Addie LaRue, it's kind of similar to like the art that you would get at the beginning of those sections, where it's just like, okay, this is just like an interesting thing, and it's like, oh no, this is an extremely relevant piece of the story, and like there's a lot of that here. And having like of course there's more in the book or that's in the than notes in the show, just based on, or at least to the first season, of course, but like having like the visuals of the season definitely helped me like navigating through, and then just kind of like already being familiar with their humor helped a lot.
One of the things that comes to mind about that is the entire section. It's like, I don't know, half a page or whatever, that spouts on about the random unique Bibles that Aziraphale collects that have like little random typos that change the entire meaning of the passage. It's like not fully relevant and not fully a joke.
Yeah,
but still
some of them are real.
Some of them are real. Too,
like those are actual things. Like, yeah.
So yeah.
All right, and for Emma and me, how was it to reread?
Watch, I'm gonna reread this again in like 2 months.
Yeah. I made the joke
Which
before
means
podcast that on Emma's story graph, it says that she is currently reading Good Omens.
it's just gonna stay.
And that is just like a perpetual state of she is always in process of reading Good Omens.
This book never gets old to me, and to your point, Cameron, the reason it never gets old is because it's so sporadic.
Mhm.
And like it's not like it's linear, but in such a unique way. And that's why I keep rereading it, is because it never gets old. And it's so perfect. So like I'm constantly reading this book because I love it so much. And I love the footnotes. Because of course. Good footnotes.
With this being only my second time reading it, um, I think I enjoyed it even more this time. Cause yeah, I think like Cameron said, like the first time you read it, it's weird and it's a little bit like what's going on most of the time. And the second time it is still like that, but you at least are prepared for it.
Yeah,
to
you're
be
at least
like
mentally prepped for
Yep.
said points of confusion.
Yeah.
Yep. And they shall continue existing.
And yeah, it was fun to just bask in the weirdness. What is everyone's thoughts on the world building in general, and specifically how the spiritual spheres intersect with our physical realm of Earth?
I think so. The world building kind of goes back to the point that has just been touched. The world building gets better the more times you read it, because the first time you really are trying to figure out what's happening, and then the more you read it or connect the dots or whatever, like it gets better because you realize where everything is going. And there's a lot of little world building things that exist in this book and this world that like are so random but fit the vibe of the book. So all of the secret agents go into the park to feed the ducks as their meeting place with other secret agents. It's like that's so random, but like the fact that they make it a point for that to be the thing, and it's also a meeting place for Crowley and Aziraphale as quote unquote secret agents for their own sides. Like it's like, yeah, okay. That's the kind of vibe that we're going with, is this, semi stereotypical I'm just sitting here reading the newspaper on a park bench, and then you sit down next to me and say a secret password. Or you're feeding the ducks or whatever. It's like, it's so dumb, but in a way that really plays into the storytelling. So I think the world building is great. And then, yeah.
Yep. I like this version, and I think they do really well with this in like the second season of the show. But the idea that like even the spiritual beings don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of the wait, why are we doing this? That's what the orders are. Like,
yep.
And this
it's
idea
the
that like
plan.
Exactly, and like no one really
knows
knows
what the ineffable plan is.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so I liked that idea, and I liked this idea of like almost like bumbling fools kind of idea that we get throughout this book for all of the spiritual beings, like both sides, of just like, what are we doing? Like we're here, we're making these deals, and kind of the idea that I think it's hinted at that like, Aziraphale and Crowley aren't the only pair that have made this type of deal with each other. And so like the people upstairs and downstairs just like aren't paying attention, and as long as things get done, they don't care how. And so like all of the other like field people that are on Earth are just like doing kind of whatever they want as long as like no one catches on. Like I really like that idea and that take on the world building. Did you find the quote you were looking for?
I did. I opened to a random page and I found it.
Got him.
I'm marking this. Okay. Sorry. Before we started, I was looking for a very specific quote, and I just found it. So. Okay, continue.
And then, other world building wise, I love how just like poignant, but again sporadic, so many of the quotes and references are. Like this is the type of world building that is like another author trying to do this would not do nearly as well at like the hit rate of Pratchett and Gaiman, but like I just think that that's so crazy and it's so fun just to see like all their random, very poignant references and stuff like that. So I love that.
Yeah. I think like it's obviously drawing on biblical beings and things like that. I think in a similar way to something like Supernatural or something where it's like inspired by, but definitely should not be taken as like
Yeah.
this is how it is. Um,
If I remember correctly, via Tumblr, because of course I follow Neil Gaiman on Tumblr, there is one specific book that they used as their like that they based all of their religious stuff off of, and it's like some random obscure book on all the pantheons of heaven and stuff, which I find super interesting because like when they wrote this book they just picked a random book somewhere and were like, this is going to be our reference point for all of whatever, and then you go and read this book and you're like, this doesn't feel like on the surface level it's not what you would expect from a quote unquote religious fictional book, if you will. But it's so fun and really does explore the different depths that we can go to for religion.
yeah. We'll probably discuss the rest of what I have to say about that later.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's all good. Moving on. Thoughts on Crowley and Aziraphale as characters and their relationship to each other.
Emma, go ahead.
I feel like we're staring at Emma right now.
There's a reason I have white hair currently. I have a favorite, and he's an angel named Aziraphale. And he owns a bookshop, and he is my favorite. I think the relationship between the two of them is something that is absolutely hilarious because they are. It's like a unique take on the whole Romeo and Juliet trope, if you will. Like, you know, two characters from opposite sides of a fight who make a deal to casually prevent either side from winning, if you will. And it's like they're doing their jobs to the best of their ability, as they're claiming, and it's so fun because it's like they're just they become best friends in the whole process of casually trying to work against each other, and that's what makes their friendship so unique. So yeah, I think you could easily label it as a Romeo and Juliet friendship without the death and dying and naivety, and one of the better takes on it.
Yep. I really like both of these characters. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love the way that they harass each other a little bit. But then the second anyone else is being like the slightest bit mean, they're like, "Whoa, you can't do that to my friend."
Hold on a minute.
Yeah, and that since they kind of have like the sibling vibes of like I can do whatever I want, but the second you get involved, murder. Um,
Yep.
Not allowed.
not
It's
allowed.
not allowed at all.
Yeah, I think they're both fun. I love their dynamic. I love the like opposites attract trope,
Yep.
and I think it's so fun. There's so many like just like random little things that are so enjoyable about them both, and like they're like complete opposite approaches to like literally every situation and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And um, yeah, I think that that's so much fun.
I do love them both, but my favorite is obviously Crowley
Yeah.
because we know that I always love the villains, especially the villains that are not really the villains.
Yep.
Yeah,
The villains who are just labeled villains.
yeah.
Yes. Right. Who's your favorite side character?
Pepper and the dog. Pepper and the dog.
Pepper and a
Who's
dog.
called? Yeah, I was gonna say Pepper and the dog, whose name is Dog. Um, I like Pepper because she knows from an early age that she is a strong, independent young woman who cannot be pushed around by men. And then Dog because Dog is a hellhound who ends up being a tiny little thing named Dog who just ends up not being able to do the things he's meant and designed to do because his person ends up being untrained by either side. So he just doesn't know he's a hellhound. So I have two. It's Pepper and Dog.
For me, I like Anathema. Um, I think it's fun. I love their like family tradition of cataloging all the prophecies, and they're like trying to figure out what's what, and oh, is this a reference to blah blah blah, that kind of thing. Um, I think that that's so much fun, and um, I also love the like the casual of like, oh, are you? I forget the quote, but it's like, oh, what are you here for? Oh, I'm a witch. Like just the like, this is who I am. This is what I'm here for. Like, let's go.
To a TSA agent, casually.
Yeah,
No big deal.
I also like Anathema. I think, and like her and Newt's team up is just so funny to me.
Hey, a guy who breaks down his computers just by turning them on, and a witch with an ancient family prophecy book. Nothing can get better than that.
Any standout moments?
Yes. I would say the entire first two pages, first of all. But to summarize, because you have to have a good opening to your book,
mm-hmm.
I am going to read something. This proves two things. Firstly, that God moves in extremely mysterious, not to say circuitous ways. God does not play dice with the universe. He plays an ineffable game of his own devising, which might be compared, from the perspective of any other players, i.e., everybody, to being involved in an obscure and complex version of poker in a pitch dark room with blank cards for infinite stakes, with a dealer who won't tell you the rules and who smiles all the time. Secondly, the Earth is a Libra. Great way to start the book, and a great way to set the tone
Mhm.
And it's funny because it's like, yeah, that is what life feels like. But otherwise, the entire book.
Gestures generally at the book.
Just the entire book is a standout moment to me.
Janine, what about you?
Obviously, given that I've read it a lot. Yes, Janine.
I, even from the first time reading it, is like the one specific scene that I remember and can like visualize in my mind, is when Dog gets named Dog. You have, he starts out as like this big terrifying hellhound, and he's like, I just named my dog Dog, and then he's like, well, I guess I have to be like a little family dog now, and he just becomes cute, and it's so funny, so
Yep.
funny. And I also like um, Crowley's um, houseplant care, how he just
He yells at them.
insults and yells at them and takes dead plants around to threaten all the other plants with, and that's just great. And then there's a throwback to it at the end where uh, the other demons are, he says they're treating him like he's a dying houseplant. It is like only something Crowley could say, but
Yep.
funny.
Um, so I really like the holy water stuff of like the reveal of like he's like has these like Crowley has these gloves and tongs and is doing all of this stuff, and it's like he fills this thing with this mysterious substance. What could it be? It's holy water.
It's holy water.
And
And
I
then
mean,
he spends several minutes in a phone.
yeah,
Literally.
yeah. I just think that was so funny that like it's just like again, it's such a great setup and payoff, and it's so well done. And then I also liked Crowley's, I guess, kind of the general journey to the military base for everybody. There's lots of really good stuff in that section, but I specifically like Crowley's holding his car together by the sheer force of his will. And it's just like,
sheer willpower.
it's just like, it can still work. Is it like, it's like literally on fire, doesn't have wheels, but it's just kind of like floating there. Um, and like he makes it there and then it just like completely crumbles because he's no longer like focused on keeping it going. And so I loved that portion.
Alrighty. Can we please discuss the way that Pratchett and Gaiman have with words and the utter magic they create with absolutely wild sentences?
Yes, we can. Because you have these two utterly fantastic writers on their own, right? Neil Gaiman, known for Good Omens, The Sandman. Um, I'm completely forgetting all of my Neil Gaiman stuff right now. Very well known author. Terry Pratchett, also very well known and prolific writer. Um, and then you just like stick them in a room together and they write a book, and you get wild things like this. And we know that they're good writers on their own, and then you make them write something. They make themselves write something together. Because let's face it, they made themselves write this. Um, and then you just get the most delicious little segments of anything. And it's so good. And this is where I'm going to share the quote that I was hunting for because it is relative to this, because it is literally probably the one sentence that has always stood out the most to me. Because it's just like, I would never put those words together myself, but they did that. And it is this: Many people, meeting Aziraphale for the first time, formed 3 impressions: that he was English, that he was intelligent, and that he was gayer than a tree full of monkeys on nitrous oxide. Period. End of sentence. And it's just like, okay, what a sentence. But I get exactly what you're saying. And it's like, it's such a random sentence, but it's also like so well crafted because it's like, okay, we're getting a sense of who this person is. Mind you, in the middle of the book, but that doesn't mean when you're in the middle of the book you can't still build character and give people a mental image. And it's just like, great, fabulous. Like, those are things I would never put together, but it's so well done because it gives you an image of this person. I could gush about this book all day.
I love their style. I love their writing. I'm thinking about how to say this. I think that there are certain like creative works that like inspire me and make me want to like write and create a story in that world. Like that's V.E. Schwab for me. And then like the complete opposite end of that spectrum is Good Omens. Like I love this book, but this is the like I don't know how you would ever remotely do any of this in a way that is remotely as both coherent and incoherent as this book is. And like the sheer like intimidation of that is just like I don't know. Like it's so like again in the hands of like lesser authors would just be this jumble of fan service and bad references, but like in their hands it is just so well done. Every word matters. It's so refined, and it's just like yeah, there's no way like
Yeah.
there's no inspiration here because like it just seems so bananas out of reach.
I think the closest comparison to this book is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and me personally, as someone who is very biased, that doesn't even come close to this book.
Yep.
But then again,
I think
I'm
yeah,
biased.
yeah. Hitchhikers has a lot of like the random references, but I don't know. It's obviously like pithy, but like I don't know. I just don't feel like there's as much of like again like constant bangers in this. It has admittedly been a long time since I read Hitchhikers, but like because that was one that I think I read in high school, but it's so good.
Which, lo and behold, I also have on my bookshelf. It's on the same stack that I keep my Good Omens book on. Just for a fun fact.
So I wrote down a couple of phrases about Sergeant Shadwell because they're the most wild things that I've ever heard. He had a voice the color of an old raincoat. How do you think to compare a voice to a color, and how does it work so well?
Yeah. Again, like in the hands of lesser authors, like this would have been so bad. But like okay, yeah, I 100% understand exactly what you mean by this reference that you just pulled out of the middle of nowhere. Like
And he also was as well balanced as an upturned pyramid. Like
So he's not balanced at all.
not in the slightest. But what a way to say it.
mm-hmm.
So they're very good at their metaphors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Their one sentence metaphors are perfection.
Yeah. I'm so in awe of their writing, and I'm like, man, how does one do that? Wild,
Wild.
wild. So I know that we have read other Gaiman because I have forced it upon you in this book club.
You say that, but I have also forced it upon y'all, and I have willingly accepted it.
To say I have not forced Gaiman on anybody, but I have willingly accepted
Yes.
the two, Neverwhere and Snow Glass Apples.
Yep.
Right, this is the third one.
Yep.
Have any of us read any Pratchett?
I
I
have
know
not.
I have. I don't recall which specifically, but I know I have read some Pratchett. I'm Googling to get his list of books. I know off the top of my head that I have read some of his stuff. I think one of his fantasy series, which, I mean, isn't super helpful. But yes, I know I have.
Yes. I have not. I've been meaning to read the Discworld series for the longest time, and I just still have not made it there.
Yep, that's kind of the same place I am. I've heard great things about Discworld, but just have never taken the time.
Yep. So
I
maybe
recommend it.
this question is for Emma specifically, especially having read Good Omens itself so many times. Do you recognize any particular author's influence in certain parts? Because I think even in interviews and things, Gaiman says to the question, like, who wrote what? He's like, we both wrote the book.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't even know anymore who wrote what. We wrote it.
I think, I mean, it really does feel like what he says. They both wrote it. Like, there's no one chapter that feels like one author over the other. Um, I do feel like the footnotes would have been one of them and not both of them, more so than anything, because they're all in the same kind of like voice and where they're placed throughout the book, like what they're commenting on, are all very like similar things. Um, so that's like the one thing that I would look at and go, that feels like one of the two of them rather than both of them. But I don't think I would be able to peg which one. Um, Granted, I'm also not as familiar with Pratchett's writing as I am with Gaiman's. Because I know I've read Pratchett, but I haven't read a lot of his stuff, so I'm not as familiar with it. Um, so I would kind of say the footnotes are more Pratchett than Gaiman because they don't feel quite as like Gaiman, but um, I can't say that with certainty because I I mean Gaiman's my favorite author of all time, so of course I will have known more of his stuff, both written and on screen, because he's also a screenwriter for people who don't know, which is also why I love him. We love finding an author that does both well, does both well.
Emphasis on well.
Emphasis on well. um, so that's like the one place that I would point to and go, like, this feels more one of them than both of them, because it is, in my experience, hard from what I've found for two authors to write a book together and have it feel like a cohesive voice. And this to me feels like a very cohesive voice.
And now for the question we have all been waiting for. What is the deal with ducks?
What's the deal with ducks? I feel like this is like me last month with the bathroom thing.
You need to feed them frozen peas, not bread. It's healthier for them. Actual Crowley rant, by the way. But there is no deal with ducks, they're just there.
But why
As a
are they there so much?
Because maybe one of them just really likes ducks.
Yeah, I would like to think that this is some very specific reference to them either
joke.
Together. Yeah, it's just like,
yeah.
Oh, the first time Gaiman and Pratchett met, it was at a pond and they were both feeding ducks.
Yeah.
And then it says like that's where the idea came from. Or like I would love to think that it's some sort of in joke between the two of them that has just never been explained. And they're just like living their best life with this joke that only they get. And it's just like so sporadic for everybody else.
Oh, look, it's the ducks again.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do feel like it started off as an inside joke between the two of them and then just sort of continued, and we're all here without any context for the in-joke. But we're just happy to be here because the ducks on a surface level make some kind of sense to the story that's already pretty ridiculous.
It stood out to me this time through reading it, like they're feeding ducks, there's duck metaphors and idioms, and I'm just like, why are there ducks again? Like, what does it mean?
What does it mean?
Everything.
And then I googled it and it seems to not mean anything.
It's exactly what they want you to think.
Said, basically, but like someone said that I think it was in Terry Pratchett's Discworld that there's this character that just says "what ducks" all the time. So like it could be a Terry Pratchett thing, or something. Who knows?
Or something.
But there's just ducks because
only Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett know, and unfortunately one of them is dead. So there's only one person in this world who knows what the deal is with the ducks. And that's Neil Gaiman, and he's very cryptic, and probably won't tell us if we asked him. So...
just thought there was going to be like some symbolism that I wasn't picking up on. And then it turns out, no, it's just ducks.
It's just ducks.
On the 8th read, the ducks really start to make sense. But it's a slow burn.
Plot twist. The entire book is from the POV of the ducks, and we just haven't realized it yet. There's just a duck in every single scene.
Gotta be it. All right. Any dislikes?
This book is perfect, and there is nothing wrong with it. You cannot tell me otherwise.
As the perpetual audiobook listener, I will say there are definitely some portions this comes up in a handful of the books that we do, where there are portions that I feel like would be extremely easy to follow in the book itself, but like in the audiobook format are much more difficult. So like one for this book was the switch of the kids, which like admittedly is supposed to be confusing. Like that is kind of the point of that scene. But just like the way that portion is told in the audiobook, I felt like really left me like disjointed, not really not even understanding if there actually was a switch, like that kind of thing. And so there are definitely parts of that I would say are less an issue of the book and are more just, this is the time that the audiobook got confusing. see Biren and Luthien for another example. Like,
I legitimately have no complaints about this book.
I have one tiny gripe, and I think that is just a product of its age. In that during the one seance scene, we get a little tiny bit racist for a minute. Um, that's my one gripe. Is
Valid
that
gripe.
that would not fly in a
That's
modern book.
that's a valid gripe.
But yes, I think largely just a product of the time it was written at. And other than that, wonderful book. So now, having all read the book and watched the show, what are our thoughts on the show as an adaptation?
Dream come true for a book to screen. And for people who don't know, the number of times Neil Gaiman got like requests and pitches and things from studios to make this into a screen adaptation, and the number of times he turned them down because A, he would not be involved via their pitch, and or B, the number of times the script was terrible and nothing to do with the book is insane. And the fact that he was so heavily involved with the show shows a lot for how much he cares about this book and this story that he created with a friend. And it shows in the show, shows in the TV show. And it is a great adaptation and a great example of if you're going to adapt something from book to screen, you know you're adapting it because there is a pre-existing audience there, which means if they're going to go and see it on screen, they're going to want to see the stuff that's in the book on the screen. So you gotta keep it true to the source material. And that's what the show does. Even in the second season, after there's no more source material, it's still true to the source material in that it still feels very much like the book and like the characters. It doesn't feel out of place or anything because they ran out of source material and are just making things up now. So, with the
Based
first,
on what Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett had planned.
there's no more published source material,
yep.
which is why I'm saying it that way for the general audience who's probably gonna watch the show rather than read the book because that's how generally audiences do things. As someone from inside the industry, I'm very aware of this fact. And it bugs me sometimes because it's like, but the book is so much better. Which, like, yes, the book is so much better in this case too, but that doesn't mean that the TV show is terrible. It is very good and very well done, and I love it so much as an adaptation because they really do stick to the heart of the book. And again, I am very much in love with all of it because Neil Gaiman is such a diehard protector of the things that he creates. And he has said in interviews and things the only way that this was going to become an adaptation was if he was heavily involved with the creation of it, in part for himself and in part because of a promise he made to Terry Pratchett before he died that if it were to be adapted, he would be involved. So it's great. I could I'll say it once, I'll say it again. I could talk about this all day, and I will.
For me, I was surprised at how close the book was. Like, I know that, like, again, I know we had talked about it, like, as the show came out and stuff like that. Um, but, like, I was just honestly pretty surprised at how well handled. And, like, again, it's been, I haven't seen season one since the show came out, but, like broadly speaking, I was just super surprised at how, like, yep, that scene, that's what's in the book and that's what's in the show, like, and that was so well done. And it kind of reminds me a bit of the Last of Us type thing, and this goes to what Emma was just saying, of like, we just want to see the story that we love done really well. And it's like there's room for adapting, there's room for changing the lore, but it's like what we're here for is the story that we are in love with, not this random other stuff. Looking at you, Avatar.
With the name plastered on top of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, you're making this thing because there's an audience already attached, which is the deciding factor for studios to make things. Because they're not going to take a chance on something unless there's guaranteed some kind of money. So if you want to keep that thing going, stay true to the thing, or else you're gonna really annoy the audience that's attached to it, and you're gonna tank your ratings. And they knew what they were doing with this adaptation, and they did it well. And this book is the reason that I got into film when I was in high school, and it is a dream job to work on the set of Good Omens. So, if anyone out there hears this, please hire me. I will be a PA. I will go fetch people's coffee.
I think it's a wonderful adaptation. It totally captures the tone of the book. It is so well cast, so much so that David Tennant and Michael Sheen had to voice their characters in the audiobook. Um, yeah, basically what you all said is wonderful. Alrighty, I have a quote.
I love quotes.
This is Adam Young. Says, I don't see what's so terrific about creating people as people and then getting upset because they act like people anyway. If you stop telling people it's all sorted out after they're dead, they might try sorting it all out while they're alive. So obviously we have a whole book full of religion and faith being presented one way or another. What do you think of how it is presented in the novel versus how it really is in the world versus maybe how it is really meant to be in the world?
I think, personally, how it's presented in novel is similar to how it could be in the world, in that it's a completely, not completely, but it's a pretty different view of sort of faith and religion, in that a lot of the times we are really just sort of doing what we're told without wondering why. And in this case, it's Aziraphale and Crowley doing what they're told, but almost in a sense of defiance of, like, yeah, we're going to do the thing that we're told, in a way of protecting the thing that we love, which supposedly the people above us are trying to protect, almost, or gain, um, from Crowley's point of view, almost. Um, but it is a different way of viewing faith and exploring what it means to have faith in something or someone. And a lot of it is having faith in people to do what they think is right based on the information they've been given. And I feel like a lot of the time in the world today, like, we see a lot of mindless obedience to a higher power without really exploring why it is this higher power is asking us to do this thing, or even whether or not that higher power actually knows what is good or what needs to actually be done. Because we see a lot of, Christian nationalists, not to say that, they're not trying their best, but like a lot of, those scenarios, we look at and go, that's not what that means. That's not what that means. Please go back and think about it again. And it's like, I don't know. It's something that we can all learn from, I think, is to stop for a minute and, not question or question. Like, maybe questioning is good, but also, like, looking at the good in the things that we do believe and reanalyzing how we ourselves are interacting with the world based on the things we do believe.
Yeah. I really like the commentary throughout the book again of the joke of the ineffable plan. Of like, oh, you just can't understand it. Like, and I feel like that commentary is, and again, this ties in with what Emma was just saying, but like, I feel like that commentary is so strong for a lot of people. Like, you get a lot of the like, no, the Bible is right, people. It's like, well, the Bible can be right, but that doesn't mean our interpretation is. And it's
Yep.
like, when you get into the, like, I don't know if minutia is the right word, but like, when you get into a lot of stuff, it's like, oh, well, the Bible clearly can't say XYZ. And it's like, can it though? Like, or have we just spent so much time saying this verse has to mean this exact thing that like it's become like can't mean something else? And so I like that defiance. And actually, we see this obviously a lot more with Crowley too, but the idea of like, oh, here's the plan. Oh, things went wrong. What a shame. And I like that side of it. This idea of like even understanding that like there's flaws in the plan, or there can be flaws in a plan. Like you can figure things out, and like the idea of like that like heaven and hell Armageddon, that they're like, oh well, this is just happening. We don't, you know what? We don't need anything. We're gonna just do this, like, because we're ready. And it's like, yeah, people can just be wanting to do something for the wrong reasons, even if they think those reasons are just and moral. Also, I love the quote that you read.
Yes. Great quote.
So
Yeah, I think a lot of the way religion is presented is like satirical, obviously, but also sometimes a little too on the nose. That it's like, I know you're making fun of that, but it's like funny because it's real. Um,
we're laughing to keep from crying. Like,
yeah.
Yep.
Um, but I think they also subtly present how faith could be. Um, and yeah, it's not, I think the positive faith presentations are generally from like demons, like Crowley, and those characters that are not like the faithful ones. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just interesting to evaluate what's being said about faith throughout and who it's coming from. Um, Something else that I was thinking about a lot during this read through was, is Adam actually an Antichrist figure? Um, because for the sake of Armageddon, he is the Antichrist. But also, is he? Because where's Armageddon? And did he ever act like an Antichrist at all once? Um, Discuss.
Yeah, I love this, and I love this idea of. I mean, he is literally the Antichrist, but like it even gets to like Crowley and Aziraphale's thing at the beginning of like that we are the choices that we make, we are the upbringing that we have, and him being switched at birth led to him having this upbringing where he just wants to spend time with his friends and his dog, and it's like it again. It's the choices that we make that define us, and it's like, well, he's defining himself by, well, I wanted to protect my friends. I wanted us to have these fun adventures. Like, no Armageddon because that impedes with my fun.
Yep.
Like, and yeah, I love that. I love this idea of getting to the idea of like redemption, or like no one is too far lost, even the Antichrist. Like,
You stole the words from my mouth. Because by nature, yes, he is the Antichrist. By nurture, he is the furthest thing from it.
he's just some
Because
dude.
he's just some dude. As hard as Crowley and Aziraphale tried, they didn't know that they lost the baby. But they did. So he literally just grew up in normal life. Like, and as hard as his nature tried to make him become the thing he was supposed to become, his nurture was like, yeah, we didn't get any of that, so we're gonna fight you back hard because we just want to be a kid riding a bike, eating one of three ice cream choices, chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry, like hanging out with our friends in the woods and taking dog on a walk. Like, we just want to be a kid because you didn't get that training, quote unquote, from either side to become one thing or another. So it very much is like, by nature, yes, technically he is. By nurture, no, not at all, not in the slightest. So it is the dichotomy of yes and no.
Schrodinger's Antichrist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think like he did at some point become aware of his powers, and I think the scene where he's like divvying up the world for his friends is kind of funny. And then but then at the end when everyone's like, "Hey, you're the Antichrist, like start Armageddon." He's like, "I don't want any more world than I've got." And that's like the
This is
most
world enough.
Antichrist thing. He just wants Lower Tadfield.
Yep, that's all he wants.
Feel like we have discussed the next question, unless anybody else has anything more to say.
No.
No.
I feel like sometimes on the faith questions, it's like, oh man, I don't know. This one is just like, yep. It's like it's such a core part of the book that it's just like, yes, it is this.
Yes.
All right. Any other themes that stood out to you?
I think, I mean, yes. And what is the love of childhood and the nostalgia we have for it? Because it does mean so much to our, like, growing up, and it forms who we are as adults. And it does create a lot of who we become. And it's very, like, not underwritten, but, like, it touches on it, but it's not carried in every single moment of, like, this has a huge impact on who we are as people.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think that comes through especially in like the closing lines of the book that like if you're looking
I have it open.
if if you're
Yes.
looking towards the future, like
If you want to imagine the
basically
future, imagine a boy and his dog and his friends and a summer that never ends. And then it goes on to talks about shoes and mud and things.
um, I like the theme that like no matter how big or small, you can help people. Like I love the recurring comment about how Azuraphale gave away the flaming sword. Like when Adam and Eve are kicked out of Eden, he's like, I thought they
Did you
needed
have
it.
a flaming sword?
It's like last time I saw you, didn't you have a flaming sword? Did you misplace it? Uh, and again, just like it's such like a little thing of like, um, but I love that idea of like, hey, even if like uh, you can't help fully, there's always something you can do to help other people.
anything else that stood out that we haven't discussed or any quotes to share.
Okay, I got two quick quotes. Then I think then Shanine can share quotes. Then Emma can just read the book to us.
I will
But
just read the entire book to you guys.
but
Everyone getting cozy, go get your popcorn. I will read the entire book to you from start to finish.
yeah.
Settle in, it's going to be a long night.
Yeah, it's about 8 to 10 hours or something like
Yeah.
that. So I like that one of the introductions for Crowley. This might be the introduction for Crowley, but it's Crowley, an angel who did not so much as fall as saunter vaguely downwards.
One of the
And
best
again, it's
lines
such a good
ever.
introduction to that character. Of like,
One
he's
of
not
the
a
others
fallen angel. He just like sauntered and vaguely like went that direction. And
one of the others that I have marked in relationship to that is he just hung out with the wrong people. Like just this other random line. Yeah, he just hung out with the wrong people. Like
yeah.
that's all.
Yeah. And then another one I like is it has been said that civilization is 24 hours and 2 meals away from barbarism, which is another like super pithy thing that's also like, like you're not wrong. Like there's a lot more truth to that statement than I would like to admit, but like uh, that is true.
There is a lot of truth to that. I mean, I have so many things I could pick. I think I mean, this is also a moment, but the entire page that is spent on describing Newt's car. Newt's car was a wasabi. He called it Dick Turpin in the hope that one day someone would ask him why. Someone does indeed ask why. Um, and then it just goes into um, the Japanese changing over from copying Western engineering to overcoming Western engineering. I just appreciate that because it's like, okay, it's. I'm not gonna read it because it's literally like a whole page. But It's just funny. And also, Cameron stole my sauntered vaguely downwards.
Got him.
And I also read my most favorite quote of all time from this book is one of Aziraphale's descriptions.
I've got a funny one. Um, that's how it goes. You think you're on top of the world, and suddenly they spring Armageddon on you. And
I hate it.
I love
That's
that.
it's so bad when they just spring Armageddon.
That's the way. It's so funny how mundane they make Armageddon sound.
Dang.
And like, ugh, just another inconvenience.
Another day,
Course,
another Armageddon.
like that.
Yep.
Today in the office. And I'm like, I have no way to relate to Armageddon being sprung on you. But somehow that sentence felt so relatable.
Yep. I will share one more. Crowley's London flat was the epitome of style. It was everything that a flat should be: spacious, white, elegantly furnished, and with that designer, unlived in look that only comes from not being lived in. This is because Crowley did not live there. It was simply the place he went back to at the end of the day when he was in London. Also relatable.
And I'll say on Shanine's quote, that is like the most relatably corporate line
Yes.
that I've ever heard of. Like, it was just a normal day, and now there's 8 P1 incidents, and like,
Yep.
I don't know what's going on, but everything's on fire. Like, yeah.
And I'll share one more quote that is something that Adam Young said, that like, why is the Antichrist the character that I agree with the most in the book? But here we are. Especially with the ineffable plan being so important throughout the whole book. He says, I don't see why it matters what is written, not when it's about people. It can always be crossed out. I'm like, oh, that's so nice.
The wise for his age.
Yeah. He's so wise in his Antichrist.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Any final thoughts?
Best book, 10 out of 10.
It's pretty mid.
So mid. Such a mid book. Guys, I've changed my mind. I hate this book. It's the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Don't ever make me read this again.
After the 10th read, it really
I
falls
want
apart.
nothing to do with it. Come back to me in a year. I'll have read it 10 more times. No other books get read in this household. It's just Good Omens.
Just Good Omens. But yeah, I love this book. It's so good. I mean, I've really liked the other Gaiman that we've read. I'm definitely interested if we can work some Pratchett in at some point. If not, I might just go grab this from the library and see if I can do some audiobooks for Pratchett. But like, I really enjoyed this. It's a fun read. Again, it's a fun commentary. Like, it's silly. It's poignant. It like, broadly speaking, all the commentary still feels very accurate today. Like, but yeah, very good read.
Wild times.
Wild times.
Wild times.
All right. So now we have read all three of our book club co-hosts' favorite reads of 2023.
And
Slash
or potentially
their
of all time.
next month's book club will be, I am so excited for this, Your Blood, My Bones by Kelly Andrew. I read her debut, The Whispering Dark, and I was just obsessed with it. So I am so excited to be reading this new release that is out on April 2nd. And this is technically our April book club, but we will be doing it on Monday, May 6th because of reasons.
Yep.
Ooh, I'm just now reading the summary for this. This
Yeah.
is gonna be good.
Yeah, I'm in like Invisible Life Addie LaRue, but like I'm definitely in the like. Well, Shanine said we gotta read it. Like I'm all in. Let's go. Like
Yep.
Cameron agreed to a horror not in October.
yeah, and so like,
Ay.
am I going to like be afraid? Yes, but
Probably.
because of some reasons, I might be reading this in a very great place. So we'll see how things go. So,
In a very well lit place.
yes. And then I'm always excited when we can do new books. Like that's
Yes.
something just kind of we've talked about this before with spoiler casts and reviews and stuff like that. Like with us doing this as a hobby, shout out to the people hanging out in chat, watching on YouTube. We appreciate all of you. But like because we do this as a hobby, like we have jobs, like we have lives, like we can't just like drop everything and do as many like new releases, spoiler cast things as we would like. And so when we have the opportunity to like get a book that has just come out and take some time to actually go and read it and then be able to talk about it, that always really excites me.
All right. Thank you for joining us for our Good Omens book club. We are First Geek 411 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Come chat with us at our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Check out our Redbubble store, watch live on our Twitch, and find our videos over on YouTube. I am Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES, on Instagram and Threads.
I am not prepared with an I in the prepared on all platforms, though I haven't touched my Twitter in a while.
And I'm Humar Whittle on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, and of course, our Discord, as Shanine shouted out.
Go save the world.
Read a book.
Feed some ducks.